Chapter 4. First Bite of Real. Jade hadn't thought about him in a few days. Not seriously, anyway. Maybe a flicker when a Facebook notification popped up, or when she passed a work truck with ladder racks. But that didn't mean anything. People linger. That's what they do. She was curled up in the corner of her sectional, oversized hoodie sleeves pulled halfway over her hands, a half-eaten muffin on the coffee table beside her. The TV played something she wasn't watching. Rain traced quiet lines down the window panes behind her. And just when the silence started to feel comfortable, Tasha's voice cut through the space from the other end of the line. "You ever messaged back that guy from the barbecue?" she asked. Her voice casual, but laced with curiosity. Jade tucked her legs beneath her. "We talked. That's all." Tasha tilted her head. Jade could hear it in the pause. "That's all, huh?" "We messaged a little. He asked me out. I said no." There was a pause, then, "Why?" Jade took a long sip of her iced matcha. "Because I didn't want to." Tasha raised an eyebrow. "Didn't want to, or didn't think you should?" Jade hated when she did that. Turned answers into mirrors. But she didn't reply. "You're allowed to want things that aren't on your list," Tasha added gently. "Just saying." Jade didn't answer. She changed the subject, asked about Tasha's new listing indicator, and the conversation shifted. But the seed had been planted. That night, after a glass and a half of Cabernet and a perfectly folded blanket across her lap, Jade opened the app again. Cameron had sent a meme. Something about HVAC techs being superheroes in July. She smiled before she could stop herself. "Okay, one dinner. But I picked the place." There was a pause. Long enough for her to question if she should have sent it. Then, "Deal," he replied. "Just no lobster tanks. I've got a thing about eating creatures that can stare back." She laughed, out loud. Alone. It wasn't even that funny, but it was exactly his kind of humor. Casual, unpolished, a little weird, not rehearsed, not performative. She typed back, "Noted." No aquatic eye contact. He replied almost immediately, "That should be a band name." She snorted into her wine glass. Opening for the HVAC Heartbreakers. The conversation trailed gently from there. Not deep, not flirtatious, just easy. They talked about comfort foods, neighborhood traffic, and how diner ketchup always tastes better than the bottled stuff at home. And for a few quiet minutes, Jade wasn't thinking about lists or standards or second-guessing herself. She was just talking to someone who made her feel lighter. Eventually, the glow of the screen dulled her eyes, and the quiet comfort of the conversation lulled her into a stillness she rarely allowed herself. She set the phone on her nightstand, curled up beneath her blanket, and let the final flickers of his words echo softly in her mind. There were no racing thoughts, no checklists, just a kind of stillness that made sleep feel like a soft landing instead of a surrender. And somewhere between one breath and the next, she drifted off, smiling. Over the next few days, their messages slowed but didn't disappear. He he sent her a photo of his busted knuckles with the caption, "The glamorous side of HVAC life." She sent back a meme of a woman fainting dramatically with a fan. He asked about her latest closing, and she asked about his most difficult client. No hearts, no flirty emojis, just presence, a slow, steady warmth. And then, late one night after a long workday, she'd typed out, "Still up for that dinner?" He answered almost immediately, "Always." A week later, they met in front of a narrow diner with a flickering sign and a screen door that creaked when it opened. Not her usual scene, but she was curious. And if she was being honest, a little nervous. He was already there when she pulled in, sitting on the hood of his truck, legs crossed at the ankles, sipping a bottled soda like he had nowhere better to be. He stood when he saw her. No grand gesture, just a small smile and a quiet hey. Inside, the diner smelled like fried onions and old coffee. The booths were cracked but clean. A waitress with a name tag that said, "Barb" brought them menus and called everyone Hont. Jade glanced around. No one was taking selfies. No one was pitching startups or planning engagements. Just people eating food they didn't have to pretend to like. She wasn't impressed, but she wasn't annoyed either. Barb returned with 2 tall glasses of sweet tea and a wink. "Y'all need a few more minutes with the menu, or ready to dive in." Cameron glanced at Jade, then back at Barb. "Meatloaf for me, please. Mashed, not fries." Jade closed her menu slowly. "Grilled chicken salad and dressing on the side, please." "You got it, sweetie," Barb said, scribbling the order with a nod. "I'll get this rolling." She disappeared toward the kitchen, her sneakers squeaking faintly against the old tile. Jade watched her go, then looked around again, checked the fraying edges of the booth's vinyl seat, the counter lined with aging chrome, the faded pie display with one lonely slice of lemon meringue. It should have felt beneath her, but somehow it didn't. Barb passed the counter again a few minutes later with 2 plates balanced in one hand and a towel tossed over her shoulder. "All right now, eat up before it bites back," she said, as she gently placed the dishes in front of them. She gave Cameron a wink. "Watch out for that meatloaf, sweetheart. It's got attitude today." Cameron chuckled. "Noted." Barb lingered just a second longer, eyeing Jade with a conspiratorial grin. "You picked a good one, hun. He's a regular hero around here when the freezer acts up." Jade offered a polite smile, but said nothing. Barb tapped the table twice, then walked off humming Runaround Sue under her breath. The lyrics soft and half mumbled, but the doo-wop rhythm unmistakable. She left behind the faint smell of cinnamon, gum and sass, her presence trailing like a memory in motion. The moment settled, warm and a little unexpected. Cameron's meal looked like something from a church potluck, cozy, heavy, familiar. Jade's salad was neatly arranged and properly boring, but it was her choice, and she couldn't say she was disappointed. They talked, not about the market, not about who they knew or what they wanted in 5 years. He asked her what made her laugh as a kid. She asked him the worst job he had ever taken. And when she answered something vulnerable, like how she used to pretend to be asleep when her parents argued. He didn't offer advice. He just nodded, like he understood. He listened. Really listened. She noticed the calluses on his hands when he passed her the salt, the way he wiped his mouth before speaking, the way he looked at her, straight, not hard, like he was hearing her before deciding what to say. It disarmed her. His homebody charm, so far removed from the curated polish of the men she usually dated, was breaking through her defenses, little by little. There was something magnetic about his ease, his complete lack of performance. For once, she wasn't the one being chased or weighed on someone's scale of worth. She was the one leaning forward, intrigued by a man who didn't even seem to be trying. And maybe that was the trick. Maybe that's why she kept wanting to know more. They lingered after the plates were cleared, the rhythm between them still unfolding. Barb reappeared like clockwork, grinning as she set down a single dessert menu with a playful smirk. 1 slice of pie, 2 forks. My treat, unless y'all are allergic to joy. Cameron raised an eyebrow at Jade. You in? She surprised herself with a nod. What kind? Apple crumb, still warm. Bring it. Barb clapped her hands once, pleased, and vanished behind the swinging kitchen door. Minutes later, she returned with a slice on a chipped white plate, 2 forks wedged neatly into either side. Jade could see a faint swirl of steam rising from it. Y'all enjoy now, Barb said with a wink, then shuffled away humming the same doo-wop tune. They shared it in slow bites, not because it was precious, but because neither of them was in a rush. Their conversation drifted, music they grew up on, weird childhood quirks, the best fries in the city. Both had strong opinions. Every now and then, their fingers brushed reaching for the next bite. Neither pulled away. By the time the check came, the diner had thinned out. A man mopped quietly near the back. The pie display case was finally empty. Cameron pulled out a couple of bills from his wallet, already knowing he had tucked a credit card under the edge of the table when Barb last stopped by. A trick he'd learned over the years. Pay early, argue less. Jade reached into her purse as well, pulling out her card. Split it, she offered. He smiled, the kind that didn't push, just softened. Only if you let me walk you out. Behind them, Barb caught Jade's card mid-air with a grin. Too late, sugar. He beat you to it. Jade blinked, momentarily stunned. She glanced from Barb to Cameron, who only offered a slow shrug and the barest hint of a grin, as if to say, what can I say? Timing's everything. She opened her mouth, maybe to protest or tease, but nothing came out. Instead, a warm flicker rose in her chest. Not just at the gesture, but at the quiet intention behind it. He hadn't made a show of it. He'd just done it. And for once, she didn't feel manipulated or impressed, just considered. And that somehow meant more. Outside, the night air had cooled, settling soft against the pavement. The parking lot was half lit, the diner's neon sign buzzing faintly behind them. They walked slowly side by side, neither speaking right away. When they reached her car, he moved ahead of her and opened the door. It was a simple gesture, one she usually waved off. She didn't like to feel like she needed someone, didn't like the implication that she couldn't do things herself. But tonight, she didn't mind it. In fact, she liked it. There was something quiet in the way he stood there, not performative or patronizing, just thoughtful, present. "Thanks for dinner," she said, sliding into the seat. "Thanks for saying yes," he replied, his hand resting briefly on the frame of the door before he stepped back. Jade closed the car door and rolled down the window halfway. She looked up at him, one brow lifted. "So what happens next? You disappear until the next meatloaf craving?" He smirked. "Depends. Think Barb will ever forgive me if I show up with someone else?" Jade smiled, real and unguarded. "Guess I'll have to beat her to it." Cameron took a step back, giving a small wave as she started the engine. "Drive safe, city girl." She rolled her eyes, but there was laughter in it. "Good night, HVAC heartbreaker." Still, as she pulled out of the lot and drove away, she told herself it was just dinner. Just a one-off, nothing more. But in her rearview mirror, she couldn't help but notice Cameron standing where she left him, watching her taillights fade. He didn't wave again. He didn't move. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, quiet as the night. Only when her car turned the corner and disappeared did he finally shift, heading back toward his old pickup, the dim streetlight catching the curve of a small lingering smile. She drove home with the radio low, the city sliding past in slow blinks of neon and brake lights. A part of her felt lighter, like something had stretched in her chest that hadn't moved in a long time. But she didn't lean into it. She knew better. Feelings were like fog, pretty but fleeting. Back in her apartment, she kicked off her heels, set her purse on the entryway table, and wandered into the kitchen without turning on the lights. The city's glow was enough. She poured a second glass of wine and stood by the window, the night curling quiet around her. She thought about the way Cameron had laughed when she made that joke about her salad being an accountant. The way he'd ask questions with real interest, not fishing for angles, but listening like every answer mattered. She replayed the way his eyes softened when she mentioned her father, how he didn't pry, didn't pivot to a story about himself. He just let the moment be. Maybe that's what startled her the most, how unpracticed it all felt. Like talking to someone who wasn't trying to impress or fix or mold her into something else. Someone who just wanted to know her. She sat on the couch, glass in hand, and leaned her head back against the cushion. Told herself again that it didn't mean anything. Just dinner. Still, her planner sat unopened on the coffee table, its corners slightly worn, the leather cover softened by habit. Inside, between weekly goals and closing schedules, was the list. Her list, the non-negotiables. Financially stable, 6 figures minimum. Clean style, educated, good family, no kids, no messy exes, must match ambition, etc. She picked it up, flipping through the pages like muscle memory, letting her eyes land on those checkboxes that once felt like safeguards. Then her phone buzzed once, softly with a message she didn't open right away. "Hope you made it home safe. Thanks for letting me take up your Thursday night." Jade stared at the screen, the corners of her mouth pulling into something close to a smile. She didn't reply. Not yet. But she didn't brush it off either. Instead, she stared at the message longer than she meant to, the glass still cooling in her hand. Somewhere in the back of her mind, the checklist tried to reassert itself. Financially stable, clean style, degree, ambition, no baggage. But it didn't feel as sharp as it usually did. Because in a booth with a chipped table and a man who knew how to use silence without making it awkward, she hadn't felt like a resume. She'd felt like a person, whole, seen. Eventually, she set her phone down face down on the cushion beside her and let her eyes close, the city's hum rising like a lullaby outside her window. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't fall asleep, wondering if she was too much or not enough.